And we're back, and it's COMP1073 in the winter 2016 semester, and it's week 2, lesson 2, part 1 of our broadcast. I want to start off today by doing a couple things to fix up stuff from last week, because I know some people are having some issues with GitHub and some technology that we were talking about last week, and I want to go over that. And I also want to talk about, with this video, our deployment options, because all your assignments, we're going to be doing things with by deploying live to a site somewhere, right? We're not going to be using any kind of FTP client. FTP is just it's getting to be more and more old technology that we're for the most part we're trying to avoid these days. What we will be talking about is a continuous deployment that comes right out of GitHub. So how do we do that, right? And what does that all mean anyway? So to get prepared before I start talking about it, and while I'm talking, I'd ask you to go to your DreamSpark site there. So if you go to dreamspark.com, now it doesn't matter if you're a student or a teacher, right? You can certainly go to this site, and let me just go to the main DreamSpark site. So if I was just going to try and find this link, and I couldn't get to where I am right now, I'd start off with dreamspark.com, which takes you here. And we're going to go to students. Under students, you're going to click software catalog. Okay. And under software catalog, you're going to notice that if you scroll down just a little bit, on the left, there's something that says Microsoft Azure, right? So part of what we're going to be doing is deploying to Azure. And what I mean by deploying is like pushing up your site files and your JavaScript up online somewhere, right? We can certainly use the school server and stuff like that as well, or something else, but I recommend we use Azure. It's easy to kind of set up when you get there. In order for you to get Azure, and Microsoft Azure is a professional grade cloud service that gives you platform as a service. So imagine instead of me setting up a server in my environment, let's say I have my own business. Instead of some people set up a server and they run their web server from there, right? Well, what do I have to do for all that? And I'm talking about a small business scenario, which is crazy, by the way, if you were to do this, right? You have to have a machine. You'd have to have a clean room. You're going to have probably some kind of redundancy, power backup, someone to maintain the machine, someone to install the software, and a bunch of other stuff. So you're a lot of capital expenditure, right? A lot of people that are going to spend a lot of money maintaining their stuff, physical machines, right? Yes, you get the performance, but you know what? If there's going to come a time where you have a machine life cycle, so 2 years, 3 years in, you're going to have to replace your machine. So you have to have a plan, a roadmap for when you do all your hardware. It's a lot of work, right? And what if this isn't your main business? You just want to run a website, right? So that's one of the questions you would have to ask. So capital expenditure. Even in a large scenario, let's say, for example, you are someone as big as Bell Canada, or you're a bank or something like that, and you want to expand your network. You want to scale up a little bit, and there's something that's not as sensitive. You don't have some sensitive data, as an example, that you want to serve there, but you want to have some kind of web presence. Again, having a bunch of servers, right, in a room that you have to maintain is expensive. So companies have really had this opportunity these days, and there's big providers. The big three cloud service providers would be Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Those are the big ones, right? And what they do is they offer something called platform as a service. So they, instead of you having the hardware, they provide the hardware for you, and you use their hardware in a subscription-based service where you subscribe to a portion of their hardware. You can use their hardware to host your files. Platform as a service. And that's what this thing is. This cloud service, Azure, is a professional grade service from Microsoft that allows us to host our files, a web app, up on the cloud. Now you can sign up, and I'd ask you, all of you please, to sign up if you haven't had a chance to already for Microsoft Azure. You go to this site, you sign up as a student. It takes a bit of time to happen, so start now, right, if you don't mind. And then what we'll do is later on I'll show you how to deploy to Microsoft Azure. So when you go here, it's going to ask you to prove that you're a student. You would follow the prompts here to register now. Just as an FYI, you need to have a Microsoft account in order for you to sign up. You can't sign up with your Georgian account because it's not a Microsoft account, and it probably won't work for you. So you need a Microsoft account. You can certainly, if you're not a Microsoft user, that's okay. You can sign up for a free Outlook account for just to use Azure. And what Azure does is it's a hosting service. So imagine if, nowadays, I mean, where would you host your files? You could go to a local provider, right? But, I mean, how much uptime does this local provider provide? Worst case scenario. Sometimes some of these local providers go down, right? Well, the great thing about these big players, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, is they have 99.999% uptime, right? And they're redundant across the world, right? They have several data centers all over the place. So if Microsoft, Google, or Amazon go down, somehow there's like a zombie apocalypse, eh? There's something happened, like the world went dark. There's no way that these three big providers are going to go down, and you're not going to have any kind of access. So that's another good reason. So redundancy is a big one as well. Now, this course is not about cloud service, right? But as an ancillary technology and a place for us to deploy, and for us to be like, to use the latest and greatest technology, I'd like you to sign up for this, so please go do it now. And then as I'm talking, I'm going to be talking about other stuff. We're going to get to the point where we deploy to Azure, right? And again, Andrew, you can do that too. It's not a problem. You can sign up.
I can do it from my normal DreamSpark account, as you call it, right?
No, you'd have to sign up for a Microsoft account. But you'd have to go here and sign in and create your DreamSpark account if you don't have one already. And the way you do that is if you click on this link.
Right? We have a Dream. All of us should have.
It's a different one.
Oh.
Yeah. So you don't worry. It's not the one. It's not the DreamSpark account that comes from here. Like normally you're used to going to this one, right? Which is E5 on the hub. This is not what I'm talking about. This is not where you do your Azure. You have to go to the DreamSpark account, like dreamspark.com, to do it. So you sign up, and when you create your account, it's going to ask you to sign in with your Microsoft account to do to do that kind of stuff. Yes.
I don't have Outlook, so should I do a Hotmail?
Hotmail, Outlook,
I don't
anything.
have the program on Outlook.
Outlook.com, actually. Outlook.com is, you don't have to have physical Microsoft Outlook.
I don't, okay.
No, if you go to Outlook.com, you can sign up for a free account, or Hotmail.com, same thing, right? Yes?
Is this the same as having hosting for someone like GoDaddy?
No. GoDaddy, it would be considered a local provider, right? And the reason for that is this: there's the big ones, and there's also some smaller ones. Some of the smaller ones would be Heroku. That would be another cloud service provider. DigitalOcean is another popular choice these days because it's cheap. Like $5 a month, you set up your virtual machine and you're running. You can set up your server the way you like. You're leasing from them. And there's other ones out there as well. But the big three, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, those are cloud providers that have several data centers all over the place, right? And although I'd like to say that GoDaddy is a good choice, I still don't think, from a performance perspective, they can match up to one of the big three, unless you buy shared hosting space with them, because you can do that too, but then they use someone else. Media Temple would be another one. So there's a bunch of other ones out there that you can use, but let's focus on the main one that we want to talk about today, which is Microsoft, right? And all of you guys have access to it for free. One other option.
It wants to send me a text message.
Correct.
I
Right.
don't have a mobile phone.
Okay. You can also, there's other options there to sign up as well. There's ways of proving you're a student, right? So just follow along. It doesn't have to be today, but I'm going to show you how to do it today, and then you can follow up and do it another day. And we're going to talk about it a couple times. It's not the first and last time we're going to talk about it, right? So don't worry if you can't sign up or get it all done today.
I can't.
Right. So you can do it another day. So there's other options if you look through.
I don't see any other option.
Sorry?
If and as I remember, Georgian College is not in the list of schools in DreamSpark.
It's there. You'll have access. Yeah, you'll have access. Everyone has access. Okay, so just just bear with us. You okay? All right. Welcome. Good morning. Everything okay?
Yeah, I had some sleep last night. It's International Hog Day.
I love it. International Hug Day. That's fantastic. So once we sign up for Azure, we'd be able to do this stuff. You can also sign up for Azure if you don't want to use. If let's say for example you're in a professional capacity and you're not, if you don't want to use your student account as well. There's two different subscriptions for Azure. One of them is Azure Pass that you get with your student account or teacher account, and the other one would be your pay-as-you-go. All right, so those are the two different kind of subscriptions you can sign up for. I'm going to be using pay-as-you-go because, again, it gives me some other different options. One thing that your Azure Pass won't allow you to do, it doesn't give you a free SQL server. It does give you access to deploy web apps. It gives you access to create MySQL databases online. It gives you access to make, let's say, WordPress sites, all those kind of things, no problem. But it won't give you SQL access. It won't give you SQL Server access as a student. If you want this kind of SQL Server, then you'd have to sign up as pay as you go, and you can do that with a credit card. The rates are fairly reasonable. Again, we're talking about if it's not that much traffic, it could be as low as between $5 and $10 a month. That kind of stuff to set up a server. That's pretty good. It's pretty robust, and it gives you some good performance. So that's one option. And again, like some of the other options, I got to bring these into play just to be fair. DigitalOcean is kind of another provider. It's a little bit more manual for you to set up. You can set up what they call a droplet for $5 a month. $5 a month gives you a bit of a server, and it gives you some space and everything else. But you need to know how to set up a Linux server to serve your stuff off. So if you're a developer and you really want to work hard, or you want to do everything manually, DigitalOcean is for you, right? Heroku is also another popular service. Just going to mention these ones. Heroku is great. The downside to Heroku is it doesn't just do regular web apps. So if you're looking to do a regular Node.js, Ruby, or Java Beans app, you're going to be you're kind of out of luck in that particular space because they only do those kinds of apps. They don't do regular HTML. If you're going to do PHP, it's fine, but regular HTML apps, no, they won't do. It doesn't do that. But it is another alternative for you to deploy online, and it's you can set up a free space for your account, and there's options where you can actually perform free all the time. It's not a big issue. Okay, so then again, those are the three. And then the other big ones would be Google and Amazon, which I'm not going to really cover. I'm just going to talk about them only because they're, again, there's some options for you to set up. For Google, you have some free options. Amazon, and both Amazon and Google, I believe you have to give your credit card information if you want to sign up with them. And that's why I didn't go with those. I stuck with Microsoft for the most part. Okay, so again, some service providers. And these people we're going to deploy our stuff to. And what if you said, well, Tom, I don't want to deploy to any one of these guys. I don't feel comfortable or whatever. There is a free service, and for us, it'll run fine. It's a little bit more work to do to set this up, but you can do it. It's called, if you look at GitHub Pages, you get, under GitHub Pages, there's a process on how to set up some free web page space, if you will, on GitHub, right? They give you the ability for you to create with a set of steps a free website right on GitHub. Now, it won't support something more advanced like Node.js, and it won't do databases, so it doesn't support databases or anything like that. But for simple, flat, non-dynamic type sites, GitHub Pages is for you. If you want to set up a project page or some kind of staging site, GitHub for free. You can't go wrong. And it tells you there's a bit of a process on how to get everything done right here on GitHub. So if you look up pages.github.com, that's another alternative. The great thing about pages.github.com, again, you don't have to use any kind of FTP protocols. We're not going to push anything up with FTP. It's all done through GitHub, right? So it's kind of a one and done shop. Okay, so that's GitHub. So some options that are there for cloud hosting. Again, we're going to be talking about the Microsoft option today. We're also going to be talking about some of the other ones as we go forward throughout the course. But I got to bring it up because for one of your assignments, or one of your first assignments, I'm going to ask you to deploy live somewhere, and Azure is where I'd like you to do it. Okay, so GitHub Pages. We talked about deployment options. Let's get right into GitHub because that's part of the issues some of us had last week, right? So I know some of us had some problems with GitHub, and let's go through that whole process one more time. And I'll do it again with a command line tool like we've been doing, and I'll also do it with the desktop tool. So I'll give you two options. Yes.
Just a quick interruption there, Tom.
Yeah.
So Microsoft doesn't recognize Georgian College as a school, so
It will work. Don't worry. It will work.
you wait for them to email you back. It wouldn't take.
It will work.
Well, okay, hang on. I mean, it will work. Will it email us back or whatever? Because it said it doesn't accept it, but I need another form of identification. Is that
And you're talking about because you're, you'd have to set up. That's why I said the setup takes a bit of time. You can also
When I did
just,
my Georgian.ca, I had the same thing with GitHub, but I was able to send in a copy of my student card and they accepted it.
and that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. So if you actually look at support, if you go to anytime you have a problem, oh, let's go back to. How about if I go back to the actual site? If I go to here and I click support, let's see if it gives me the proper support. You actually can send a little support, a request to DreamSpark, right? And they'll give you a step-by-step on how to set anything up that doesn't work on
Because our
DreamSpark.
student card isn't international, I just tried that as well. So
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, so just go that route.
The reason why is because our mail has changed, right? Before our Georgian College mail was a different mail, right? And now when we move to my.Georgian College or that different way of doing georgiancollege.ca, that is a problem because it hasn't been updated on DreamSpark. However, we are a recognized college, an academic institution that they recognize. Send them a support request, and they will come back. They're fairly good at responding. Yes.
Google Georgian College DreamSpark, it brings you to the specific Georgian College store.
You're talking about E5 on the hub, right?
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
it
that's-
gives you a key for Microsoft Azure.
For Microsoft.
Azure, however you pronounce it.
Okay, Azure. Let's take a look at that. So if we were going to go to, you're saying this one, Microsoft Georgian College,
Yeah,
right? And where?
if you search for it, Azure, and then.
Oh, like up here on the product search?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look. Verification code. There we go. A one-time activation. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's cool. You don't want any of these. These are just activators and quick starts and emulator tools, but that's fine. I wouldn't. We never have to do that. I mean, it's neat that they'll do this for you and see what you get. To find out how to redeem your DreamSpark.com verification code. Okay, that's what it is. To get free access to the Windows Store and Windows Phone Dev Center. Right, that's neat. No credit card required. Okay. I mean, try following these steps as well. I know in the past, what you can certainly do is, and when it says, are you eligible? You'd have to sign in to see that you're eligible, and most of you are. If you're not, you have to send a request to, I believe, is it IT support now? Is it? It was CS Co-op before, right? CS Co-op, right? Yeah.
Make sure you're not signed in somewhere else in a different account too.
That's true. You have to make sure that you're not signed in as your Georgian College user. If you're signed in with your email, like if you're Office 365 or something like that, or sign in with your email, it'll mess you up because when you sign in, it won't see your Microsoft account. It'll see you as a Georgian College account. You need a Microsoft account to sign in. Now, it seems like this is complex, but really, once you sign into Microsoft and you get going, you never have to worry about this again. It's just the first registration piece that you got to get over. Okay. Okay, I'll get back to this in a bit. Let's go back to the GitHub thing. So I wanna set up GitHub again for my sites, and I have a let's suppose I have a folder that I want to set up online, and I do. I have a new one called COMP1073 somewhere over here, and it's going to be for lesson 2, right? Part 1. So if I was going to find this folder somewhere on my desktop, or where is it? Oh yeah, it's in my courses. Forgive me. So if I go to my lesson 2, I have this folder, COMP1073 lesson 2, and I haven't connected this to GitHub, right? I want to connect this to GitHub. So I have a folder I want to connect to GitHub. So what do I do first? Let's recap. And by the way, on your halfway through the day today, we're going to do a little quiz just on this stuff that I'm talking about right here. So let's see if you can remember, right? So first step is I need a folder to create a repository with, right? It's number 1. Second step is I need to, get to that repository or that folder. Now the easiest way, since we're using Visual Studio Code, is launch Visual Studio. That's what I recommend, right? You could certainly swim there by knowing where your folder is and launching a terminal window. So let's say you can do it this way. You can say kind of do like CD, and then you could go to if I know I'm in where my folder is, I can certainly go CD and then drop my folder in there, right? And you can do that both on Windows and on Mac. And then if we do that, now I'm in my folder, and if I do a ls on Mac or a dir on Windows command prompt, then when I get my content and I'm there, right? So that's one way to get to the folder. So I can do it through command prompt. The other way to do it is, like I said, the easier way is bring up Visual Studio Code. So here it is. And let's say I want to swim there. I just take this folder and drop it into the right side of this pane here, which will bring up my folder structure right here. And I already had it open. But you know, here's my folder structure for Visual Studio Code, right? If you've got GitHub set up properly already and it's available for you on the command line, and that's a question. Is GitHub available for you on the command line? Have you set that up properly? You don't know.
That's where mine failed.
That's where you're failed. If it is, if you click on the GitHub link over here on the left hand, right? You'll see that it says Initialize Git repository. If it doesn't say Initialize Git repository, you're not set up correctly.
We got all that. It just was when it was time to cut and paste.
No problem. No problem. So that's what I'm saying. So this is the piece. If do you have that? Initialize Git repository? Okay, but I'm saying if you let's set up a new folder. Yeah, so it does say this? Then you're good. Okay, but if as long as you're able to initialize on GitHub like this, that means on the command line, you're good, right? If it doesn't say this, if it says something else, like you have to set up GitHub or whatever properly on your computer, there's some setup for you to do. Okay, that's the problem. And the reason why is because your command line is not working properly. So if you can't go to your command prompt and do one of these, git, and it doesn't give you this on your command prompt, anywhere on your command prompt, something's wrong. You haven't finished setting up your Git locally, right? Now remember, when we do GitHub, right? And what is GitHub and Git? Like I said, it's a collaboration and a version control tool, and it's also a place to back up our files, right? So, but we have two pieces to it. One piece is the local repository, which is a folder that's invisible to us, right? It's a invisible folder. So in our folder structure, all I see now is my content and scripts. By the way, those are the two folders I'm going to ask you about. What are the two folders that are required when we set up a project for us right now? It's content and scripts. Those two folders are the one we see, but we don't see the Git folder, the .git folder, because it's invisible. It's in our operating system, and it's been now unless you on the Windows side, if you said show hidden files and folders, you'll see the .git folder there, right? But otherwise, in our Visual Studio Code, we don't see it. If we set it up, it's going to be there, okay? So there's two ways to initialize my repository, my local repository, and I need to initialize it to say to my folder, hey, I need a space to put the copies of my files and keep track of my versions. I need to set that up. And in order for me to do that, it's called initializing Git, right? So you can do it here. If it's available to you here, you can do it here in your Visual Studio Code. I'm going to do it a bunch of times, right? So you can see it a few times here. So one is initialize Git repository here. The other one is to do it through command line. But you need to go to the location of where your project files exist on your system. Otherwise, you can't initialize it just a random location. It has to be in the exact folder. So let's do that. So in order for me to get to the folder through Visual Studio Code, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go to Open in Command Prompt on the Windows machine. Now on Mac or Linux, it'll be Open in Terminal. What this does, it'll bring up the exact location of my folder that I'm going to set up my Git repository. All right, so mine would be COMP1073 Lesson 2 as an example. That's where my folder is. So now that I've got my folder open and it's an exact location, like my command prompt or terminal is pointing to the exact location of my files, now I can do an initialization. I have to initialize my Git repository. And if you're confused about it, I mean, you can certainly go up online from a step-by-step perspective. GitHub gives you all the steps you need. So if I was going to go to github.com and I'm going to set up my repository first, this is probably something that you want to do first anyway. So I'm going to go to Georgian College. Right? And notice that I have COMP1073 Lesson 1. I'm going to set up another one that's COMP1073 Lesson 2, but it's going to be empty. So I'm going to copy this, go to New Repository, and then paste and change the name to Lesson 2 because you can't have the same name as any other repository you have on GitHub.
My master page looks a little different.
Which master page?
The one where you just set your picture.
Yeah, because I have other stuff going on, right? So don't worry about how yours looks, as long as you. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're able to do a create repository, you're good, right? So you can do that through the plus. If you don't know how to do it, see on the top right, you can always click plus, and then you can do it in app-get, but let's do it together like this. I'll show you this way, and then we'll go do another couple ways, because otherwise, some people are having issues with this. So again, you can do it two ways. So I did it where I went to my site. So and in this case, it would be your name, your username that you go in here. So if my username was, Sidiopoulos, which it is, I could do it here. You might see something like this as well, where I've got a bunch of repositories or whatever, and then I want to set up a new repository by pressing the plus icon on the top right corner of your screen here. That's one way of doing it. So I can go new repository, right? That should always be available to you. Now, in my case, I have several different organizations, and I'm just going to choose Georgian College, right? So that's one thing I can do. And notice if I put the same name as another repository, it's going to error out and say, no, you can't do that because you already have that repository, right? And I have to change the name to something that's unique for me. It doesn't have to be unique for GitHub. It just has to be unique for your files, right? A unique name. Okay. So now that I've done that, I have a couple of options, public or private, right? Private would only be available to you is if you've signed up for on GitHub.com, the student pack with DreamSpark. Going back to DreamSpark again. So if I go to DreamSpark, remember what I said last week is you can go to DreamSpark and go to GitHub Education, right? So once you sign up for GitHub, you get on your GitHub pack, you get the following stuff for free. You get access to Amazon Web Services Cloud for some free training, and you get a bit of credits between $50 and $115. It says you get some access to DigitalOcean, a $50 credit for DigitalOcean, right? So instead of it costing you $5 a month, it'll last you for 10 months, right? Instead of that thing, it'll give you GitHub. It'll give you 5 free repositories, right? This is all available to students, right? Normally about $7 a month. You get 5 free repositories. Visual Studio Online, a free domain name from Domain Cheap with an SSL certificate. So if you want to get your own domain, you want to call it like tomsidiopoulos.com, whatever, or yourname.com, you can try and figure that out. If you don't have a popular name, if your name is like not John Smith or something like that, you'd be okay, right? And then other things, SendGrid, which is kind of a really cool email relay service, and even Unreal Engine, if you want to set up a video game. They get all kinds of stuff in your student developer pack, right? So again, this is available if you just sign up for if I go get your pack, then you do the same kind of sign up sequence. Yes, I'm a student, and you prove that you're a student, and then and you can send some information to GitHub as long as you prove that you're part of an institution, student or a professor, researcher, or whatever. It'll give you access to these 5 free private repositories. But let's suppose I want to just do a regular repository here. I'm going to go back to create a new repository. I have 2 choices, public or private. I'm going to choose public in this particular instance. I'm not going to click anything else. I'm not going to click Initialize this repository with a README file, and I'm just going to click Create Repository. When I do that, it's going to create a space, and it tells me there's instructions here on how to follow to create your own repository locally. This is your local repository that it's giving you steps for. So if I follow all these steps, right, even if I do what they tell me here, which I don't have to do all of these, it'll set up everything you need to connect your local folder with your remote repository just by following these steps in the command prompt. All right, there's your steps right there, right? But let's say I want to do it like the way I was showing you last week, which is the first thing is, if you notice, I'm not going to do my README file. I'm going to skip this first step. And I'm going to go right to this next command, which is git init. That's the first one. So I'm going to say git init and press enter. And it's going to say initialize empty git repository in your folder, and it's going to tell me where it is. It's under the .git folder. It's an invisible folder that's going to appear again if you have access to seeing hidden files. Okay, cool. Next step. That's the first step. Step 2 would be to add files into what they call the staging area, right? The staging area, you can't do this? Can't do git init?
No, I can see my C users, Tony, desktop client, scripting, COMP1073, lesson 1, git, and then I type in git init, and it just says the system cannot find the path specified. That's what was happening the other day when I
Okay. Well, maybe we'll during the break. I'll come over and we'll. So anyway, the next step after you do your git init, and anyone else fail this step? If you failed this step, the first step, then that's a problem with your setup somehow, right? Yeah. No. Just try using command prompt by itself first. If you have a git bash comes with your desktop.github.com, right? It would still certainly work with that, but just type in CMD. If you go to Windows and if you pull up if you click on the menu button, right, the Windows button, and you just type in CMD and you press enter, command prompt should come up, right? And then just type git and see if it actually comes up with a big list or if it comes up with unrecognized command. Yeah, so we have to set you up on there's some steps we have to do to set you up on your system. So maybe at the break, what I'll do is I'll talk to a couple guys and then get you guys set up. But anyway, so what you do is, again, now the next step is you're going to add all your files onto the staging area. You're going to push them into the Git repository. But in order for you to do that, you're going to say, okay, I'm ready to push these files. So when I say staging area, it's almost like a holding area before I actually physically commit my changes. When I commit my changes, I'm taking a snapshot of my current files in their current state. I can't do a snapshot without two things. I have to tell Git what files I want to add. You can do it manually or you can go like this, git add dot. Manual, I mean one file at a time. You can specify which files you want to add, right? Or if I do this, git add dot, it adds everything that's been changed, okay, to my staging area, right? Okay, so I just did that and it didn't give me any feedback. If it doesn't give you feedback, you can assume that things are good, right? Next step. When I add them to the staging area, now I have to create something called a commit. And the commit is almost like I'm naming my snapshot, right? So that's number 2. So I'm going to say git commit -m is the switch that I'm going to use on the command line to indicate this is the commit message. I'm going to tie it in with a message that that GitHub is going to have, Git is going to use to name my snapshot. Okay, so I'm going to call this first commit is the best practice or convention, or initial commit. I'm going to call mine initial commit just to be different. Notice how on the left I followed these steps: git init, git add, and instead of just adding a specific file, the README file, I made it git add dot, which means add everything, right? Git commit -m for message, and what my message in a string, in quotes, I'm gonna name my message. Mine is just initial commit. Now I haven't committed it yet. I haven't pressed enter. I'm gonna press enter now. Okay, now I get all this stuff, which means, hey, I'm gonna create a place for all these files. All right, and all it's doing is it's taking the stuff that I've put in the staging area and added it into that invisible directory called git.git. Yeah.
So last week in lesson 1, we did all the bootstrap and all that stuff that you see there. You said when you put the dot, did that pull in everything from that
Everything.
last week as well, everything that had not been sent yet?
Yes.
Even though you had lesson 2, that's
Well, this is a different folder, right? So yeah, so for everything that I've had in this folder, for the other stuff we did last week, I mean, it's a different folder.
So this stuff is all there in lesson 2 as well.
I just added. I have in my lesson 2. It's almost identical to lesson 1. Remember, I told you I was going to use lesson 1 as a template for lesson 2, and that's what I've done, right? So lesson 2 is just
We haven't done that. Mine says nothing to commit. I don't have.
If you haven't made any changes, or if your folder is empty and there's nothing to commit, it won't add a commit. You have to make changes in order for you to have something to commit, right?
An empty file that I put in.
If you put an empty file, and if that's a change that you've added in, then that's a change. It should be able to commit an empty file. But go in there and add something into the file, change it somehow, right? If you don't change anything, you can't commit anything. There's nothing to commit. There's no changes. Remember, GitHub is just for any changes that you're making to your files, right? Okay, so I've committed everything. I'm just going to clear the screen here. So I'm going to go clear on a PC. It's CLS, if I'm not wrong. And if I clear the screen, I'm back here, just to follow along with what I'm doing here. So I've done my commit, and now I've got to add this next line. Now I could certainly type it, so I can sit there and instead of me copying and paste it, I can type it in, right? So I can go, git. Let's try this again.
So if our file.
Git remote add. Hold on a second. Git remote add origin, right? And then I could type the rest of the stuff, or, which is easier, just copy and paste, because there's a big long file right here. Hold on a second, Margo. I'll be right with you. So if I go back here and I paste and I press enter, now again I don't have any. I pressed enter. There's no feedback. That's a good sign typically. If it give you feedback saying sorry, you're wrong, that's the only time it'll give you an error if there's or feedback if there's an error. And now for the last step, and I'll come back to you in a second, is my last thing, which I'm going to push. Pushing means I'm going to take my local files inside my local GitHub folder and push them all up into the cloud, right? And connect it for that 1 second. Git push minus U for unconditional, so whatever's up there, it'll replace origin master, which basically tells me I'm going to take my master, my origin, which is me, my files, and push it into the master branch, right? There's different branches in GitHub, almost like separate subfolders that you can make as well on your repository. We don't care about those right now. Just push it like this for now. So mimicry is a good step. Okay, so if I press enter, it's gonna, you may get a request to put in your username and password, because if you've never done this stuff before, even if you have, it might ask you for your credentials for GitHub, right? So you put in your username and password. Even if it doesn't, if you put your password in, it doesn't seem like it's typing, it's actually typing. That's just the way it protects your password on command prompt, right? So you don't see that you're typing anything, but your password's going in. Then press enter, and it'll, if everything's successful, you'll see this. It'll push everything up to GitHub, right? And if I refresh my GitHub, then you'll see this, right? Notice that it says lesson 2 part 1 and everything else. And if you were going to go up there and grab my lesson 2 part 1, it would look just like this. Okay. Now, sorry, you were saying, Marco?
So I don't have anything in there. Is there a point to putting in this line, get remote out origin, going through that process? Is there a point in doing that now?
Why don't you put something in there, and then you can test it?
That's going to get me confused.
Okay.
Once I have something, I could do it now?
You could do it now.
And that's not going to create a problem
No.
for me?
No.
But I have to go through that process again when
Yeah.
I have something in there?
Once you can put git add remote anytime. Once you initialize your repository, you can put that git add remote stuff anytime. The only thing is you can't push up to the line unless you have a commit, right? So the git add remote actually just adds, it makes a connection with your remote, and it's only temporary. It's not always connected. It's once we make that connection, if I do git push again, right? It'll know where to go, right? But it's not always connected. It's not in sync with, like, your local repository is not always in sync with the cloud. It just temporarily becomes in sync when you just want to push stuff. And when you're done pushing, it disconnects. So it connects when you want to push, and when you're done pushing, it disconnects, right? Because you can't have your files open the whole time, right? What if you're on a train? What if you shut your computer down, right? It'd be weird, right? So that's why it connects and disconnects. And it only connects when you need to send stuff up, and it disconnects when you're done, right?
You never have to enter that one line again.
That git add remote you never have to do again if you've done it right, right? And again, once I've made that remote, I can also not just push, but I can also pull from my remote, right? Which we'll talk about another time.
I copied the content and the scripts folder and the index.html from the old lesson 1 into lesson 2.
Okay.
And then I tried to do a commit and it said untracked files.
Yes, because you have to do git add dot. You have to add them all into the staging area first, right? So let's try this again. I'll do it one more time for you guys, and we'll do it through Visual Studio Code this time. So I'm gonna start from scratch. So the first thing is I want to get rid of my repository. This Georgian College 1073 lesson 2. I want to get rid of it. How do I get rid of a repository? Under settings, take a look. So let's say I made a test repository. I want to get rid of it. Click on settings. Underneath settings, if you scroll down, if you look at danger zone, right? It's a good indicator that something is you're in danger. You don't. Typically, we don't delete repositories unless we have to. I click delete this repository under the danger zone, and I can remove. I have to copy the name of the repository here and paste it. This is an extra step to verify what you want to do instead of making a big mistake, right? Because imagine if you have all your files up in a repository and you're just one click away from destroying everything. That would be very bad, right? So I want to put this in there and press I understand the consequences, delete this repository, and it'll be gone for good, right? Yeah, and then boom, it's gone, right? So I don't have access to that anymore. Even though I have my remote repository here on my command line, it thinks there's a remote called, this COMP1073 lesson 2. Now, if I try to do a push now, whatever, it would fail. But what I want to try and do here is I want to remove my folder, my Git folder. Is that a hand or is that a? Okay, no problem. You're just stretching. if I want to remove my folder on the command prompt, right? There's a couple ways to do that. I could do it physically in the operating system by finding my file and right-clicking that .git folder and removing it. On Windows, that might be the easier solution. On Mac or Linux, I have to do a command like this: remove -rf, right? Which is really dangerous when you do remove rf, right? Because it'll remove everything, you know, and it'll force remove, right, recursively, everything in all the subdirectories. And then you kind of type the directory name, so .git, and press enter, and then it's gone. So now there's no Git repository anymore, right? So I'm starting from scratch, all right? So the first thing I got to do is create my repository online, right? Let's do that. So I'm going to go back to the plus. You can create another repository, make another one, guys. You can make as many as you want. Don't feel free. There's no limit, right, to how many repositories you can make with GitHub. I'm going to make a new repository. And again, guys, Margot, everybody, please practice this. Okay, don't worry, it's not going to screw you up. Make another repository, all right? You want to practice this because on a test, I'm going to ask you to do this, right? And then you're not going to have enough time to do this in-house if you don't know what to do. So I'm going to choose, and forgive me that I'm switching owners, but that's only because I want to push it up to Georgian College. So here I'm going to just choose the folder name. So I'm going to say COMP1073, and it's going to be lesson 2, right? Lesson 2. And if I was going to keep, if I wanted to keep this the same, I could test it out. Is lesson 1 taken? Yes, it is. Lesson 2, that's unique, right? Because I deleted the other one. I deleted my old repository. Okay, cool. I can make it public or private. I'm going to make it public, right? And I'm just going to create my repository. Just click Create Repository here, which is going to create a container, a place for my files to go. This is where my files are supposed to go, right? So let's do it again. So if I follow the steps here in order, right, and I don't create a README file because in my case I already have one, right? And if I just, first of all, if I do a list command or a dir on Windows, it's going to list the contents of your files. And notice that I have my content, I have my scripts, I have my README file, I have my index.html, and now I need to add them. I need to initialize my repository. So the first step is git init, which initializes my repository for the first time, right? And after I initialize my repository, I want to add all my files, right, into that staging area, that holding area, before I do a physical commit. It's almost like a limbo. Before you go to hell, you got to go to limbo. I don't know the better way to say it. It's almost like a holding area where you put your files before you make your final commit, right? And you're going to kind of put git add dot. When I put git add dot, it says add, and the dot says everything. That's what it means. Git add everything, right? And it adds everything to the staging area, right? Now, I haven't made a commit yet. All I've done is I've moved the files that I want to commit into a staging area. I've copied the files into a staging area. In order for me to do a commit, I got to do the next step, which is git commit. I got to say it's going to be a commit. I got to name it, right? And I got to call it something like initial commit, or like it says here on GitHub, first commit. Those are two conventions we use, initial commit. Okay, cool. So we do that, and notice that it gives you some feedback saying, yeah, these are all the files I've added into your staging area. I'm going to clear the screen so you can see better. And now the next step after I've done my commit is connecting to my remote, right, which is here. So again, I'll do the same thing. I'll just grab this remote, copy it, go back here, paste it inside my, my command prompt, and press enter. No feedback, that's a good sign, right? And then my last step is git push. I'm going to push my local files to my remote. So I'm going to say git push -u for unconditional origin to the master branch. And press enter. And when I do that, if everything goes well, it might ask me to log in, put my password to Git or whatever, and it pushes up to GitHub. It makes that temporary connection. It connects, throws things on GitHub, and disconnects. Okay, and then if I go back to my GitHub and I refresh, I should see these. Questions about this, this process on the command line? Yeah.
I got a different.
Okay. Let's look at your message during the break.
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 The break.
Yeah. Only because it'll slow everything down, and I got other things to show you guys. Okay, so I got my stuff up here. Let's do another folder, a complete new file, right, as an example, and we'll make it a very simple file, and we'll use just the desktop tool. So let's say you're command line phobic, you don't want to do command line, you don't like it, it's not comfortable for you, you're never going to do it. You're like, I'm never going to do that, right? Because you don't feel comfortable doing it. It's okay. There's a GitHub tool you can use. And on Windows, you can get it from desktop.github.com if you haven't done it already, where you can go here and download the tool like we said last week, right? And it's available for Mac or Windows. And once you've got that tool, I can do everything through the tool. Now, it's slightly different for Mac and Windows. So if you're a Mac user, we'll do that first, and then I'll do the Windows user experience next. Okay, so I'm going to kind of minimize all this stuff here, right? And I've got my ugly desktop. And let's say, for example, I want to bring up that tool. Now, I have my tool separately. So I'm going to bring up my GitHub tool. And it's going to look something like this, right, on the Mac, right? So you've got this, your tool. Notice in the top left corner, you have a plus button. If you're on a Windows machine, it's very similar, but on the Mac, it looks like this. I can click Add Repository, and notice that I have 3 options, and you should have similar options on Windows machines: Add, Create, and Clone, right? If I click Add, that means add a local repository that I want to track, right? How about if I want to create a new repository strictly with the tool, nothing to do with my command line? How can I do that? So Create. Notice I have my local path that I point to. I could swim to my local path, wherever that is. So let's make one. So I want to kind of go back out to, I'll leave this up for a second. And let's make a new folder in the background. So I'll say new folder, right, just as a test. And we'll call this thing, COMP1073, I don't know, GitHub test. Let's try this out. COMP1073 GitHub test. Right, there it is. Back to GitHub, and I'm gonna trying to find that. Now, luckily it's on my desktop, so I know where it is. I can click Choose, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I can look at that file, so COMP1073 GitHub test, and I'm going to open that up. So that's where the local folder is going to be, right? So I'm kind of linking my local folder through the tool with this new remote that I'm going to make, right? And I want to make my repository name. This is what it's asking for, right? So my repository name is going to be the same. I'm going to kind of keep it the same, 1073 as an example. And notice that on what I'm doing is I'm making a repository within a repository. I don't really want to do that. That's actually wrong to do, right? Because I've made a local folder. Actually, what I'm actually doing is the wrong steps. So bear with me while I correct that. The reason why is because notice how it's putting COMP1073. It's going to put a folder, my repository, inside my GitHub test, and I really wanted to create it all here. So let's back up a step and fix that. Right? So how do I fix that? It's actually quite easy to fix. Just delete the folder and just do it from scratch. So I'll move this to trash, go back up here, and then I'm going to swim to the desktop instead. Sorry. And then in my desktop, I'm going to notice when I put my name in, it's going to make that folder, COMP1073-GitHub test. So it's going to make that folder for me. And then I'm going to create my repository. There we are. And what this does is it creates that folder, COMP1073 GitHub test, for me, instead of me creating it for myself. If I double click on it, notice it's empty. There's nothing in here. Let's make a file. I'm going to put a file in there. And there's a couple ways to do that. You could in Windows, you can right click in your menu and you can add a new text file as an example. On Mac, it's a little bit more complicated. You can't do it just like that. You'd have to open up a file somewhere else, or you can do it through the command prompt. And through the command prompt, it would look something like this on the Mac if you're a Mac user. So CD to swim to that folder, space, and then drag that folder in, and press enter. And then from there, I could do something like this. I can use the touch command. So I can say touch, and I'll make it index.html, right? So I just get an empty file in there called index.html, right? Going back to my folder now, you can see that that file exists, right? Because that's how it works on the Mac, a little bit different. And then I could modify this file in any editor that I want. So let's say I open it up with, I don't know, let's open it up with Text Wrangler, right? Some other kind of text editor. And in my text editor, I'll put some basic stuff for index. I'll say hello. There wouldn't even be a proper index.html file, right? But it's something. It's got something in there. There we go. So now index.html is made. All right, cool. Now if I look at my repository, notice how it automatically knows on my desktop tool, even though I made changes outside of it, that I've got one uncommitted change, right? And it shows me that the uncommitted change is this hello that I put into my index.html. It just knows because it's linked to your local repository. Okay, cool. Well, if in order for me to commit my changes, I got to click on one uncommitted change. If you click on it, right, I want to commit this change, right? So I click on one uncommitted change. On the bottom, notice that there's a summary. That's my commit message, right? And I put it in there. So I say, added, content to index.html. That's my commit message. Notice I didn't put in initial commit or first commit. Notice that? I didn't do that. It did it for me. In the tool, once I create a local repository, it makes my first commit or initial commit for me. Right? I don't have to do any of that. And then I commit and sync master. So what this does is it tells me where it's going to go, and it says, hey, here's my repository commit COMP1073 GitHub test. And notice how it's asking me to publish my repository, and it's trying to publish it in a specific account because it's linked through. If I've set up my GitHub tool correctly, it's going to know my accounts. And I'm going to push to, of course, Georgian College, right? And it's going to make the name of my repository up online for me, COMP1073 GitHub test, right? I click Publish Repository, and what it does, not only does it update my local commit here, it also goes up online, connects, and sets up a repository for me on my GitHub account. Let's check that out and see if it's true, right? So I'll click GitHub Georgian College, and there's GitHub test. It all happens through the command line, right? Your fail, but that's how it works typically with this. And notice here's my index.html, and if I look in there, there's my hello, right? Okay, let's do it on the Windows machine. And for that, I'm going to pull up my virtual machine. Hopefully, it will not fail this time. So here's my Windows machine. I'm going to click on here, and let's bring it up. Let's make sure I have enough RAM or memory to do that. Oh, it's going to be tight. I don't think I'll be able to do it. It's going to fail again. Guys, I know some of you wandered in late. Next week, I will have a test first thing when you guys come in, right? So please don't come in late, or else you won't have your test. You won't be able to do your test, all right? Tests, first 10 minutes of class, starting next week. Okay, let's go. So I log in, to Windows here, and of course I can't continue because I've got no space. Yeah, I apologize again. Power that off. Just won't allow me to do it. The process is very similar, and what I'll do is I'll take a short break. Stop recording right now, and when I come back, I'll. And for those people who have issues, maybe you want to come see me. We'll take 5 or 10 minutes right now. I'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and I'll fix my problem. Okay, so let's take a short break. I'll stop recording, and this is all around trying to get your GitHub fixed because I know some of you are concerned.